Hey y'all, this is April Bird coming with your daily devotional, sharing my personal time with God. Today we're going to wrap up my little series in Genesis about Joseph and his family. I'm gonna really I'm gonna try to be not try to be before you really long, but I'm gonna actually wrap up chapter 42 all the way to chapter 45. I'm just going to give you little bits and pieces and hoping that you will go and read for yourself if you're interested in finding out about Joseph and how everything played out below. So Genesis chapter 42 through 45, but I won't just read all of it or just talk about all of it because I don't read it. I'll just talk about it. But my title is going to be You Meant It for Bad, but God meant it for good. And so this is a time in chapter 42 where the famine was in the land, as we spoke about yesterday, how Joseph interpreted Pharaoh's dreams, that it was going to be 7 years of plenty and it was going to be 7 years of famine. And so they're in the severe famine now in chapter 42. And so Jacob is the father, and he realized that they had food in Egypt. And he told the sons, the boys, he was like, why are you just, I'm paraphrasing, I'm just going to tell the story. Why are you sitting around? Why are you sitting around when there's food in Egypt to get? And we're in a famine, a severe famine. And so the brothers packed up and they went to Egypt to get food. And so when they went to Egypt, remember, Joseph is a governor over Egypt. He's in charge over everything. Nothing can happen unless he allows it, right? He's the head man next to Pharaoh. And so when Joseph sees his brothers, he recognizes them, but they don't recognize him. Because remember, they sold him into slavery to the Ishmaelites, right? And so now he's probably like 33. And so he was 17 then. And so he recognizes them, but they don't recognize him. And so whenever they came to buy grain or buy food, Joseph spoke harshly to them. Who are you? And where do you come from? What are you looking for? He's like, we came to buy grain. We came to buy food. We're from Canaan. And Joseph said, you're spies. You come here to find a weak spot in our land. And the brother was like, no, we're not spies. We're the sons of one man. He has 12 sons. And one is at home with him. And one is here, is no more, is dead. And so Joseph said, no, you're spies. You're spies. You came out to spy. You came to find a weak spot in my land. So Joseph was messing with them. And so at that time, Joseph actually said that, where's your younger brother that you say you had? Where's that younger brother that you say you had? And he was like, the younger brother's at home. Our father is alive. And he has a son with him. And so Joseph said, you're spies. I just know that you're spies. And so to prove that you're not spies, go and bring your younger brother here and bring him to me so I can see that you're not. And so they're like conspiring with each other, talking to one another. And he was saying that, see what had happened to us? You see what has happened to us now? God is dealing with us for what we did to our brother Joseph. And so Joseph was actually able to understand them, being a Hebrew, being one of them, but he had an interpreter. And the Egyptian didn't know that he understood that, but he was listening to them talk about what had happened, and God was dealing with them for what they did to their brother Joseph and how he was begging and crying not to leave, and we sold him into slavery. And so he said, what you can do, Joseph told them to go ahead and go back to your father, but bring your brother with us. Bring your brother back to us. And so he said, leave one here. So they didn't want to leave anybody. So he put them in jail for like 3 days. And so once they got out of jail, he said, leave one here and go. He gave them grain, packed them up. He said, leave one here. So he left Simeon there. And he kept Simeon there as a prisoner, as a slave. And he said, don't come back to get any food or anything unless you come back with your brother Benjamin to prove that you're not spies. And so when he packed up their bags and they get on the road to leave on their donkeys, they leave to go back home to Canaan. And when they on their way home, they look in their purses and they find out that all of their money and everything is back in there. Joseph had arranged for them to have food and gave them all their money and everything back. And they were so scared that they didn't pay for their stuff. So they get home and they tell the dad, they tell Jacob, and they said that we didn't even pay. The money was back. We gave it to him, but we would never steal. We would never do that. We're not the type of people. Like they try to tell Joseph that they're not that type of people. We're honest men. And I'm like, you're honest men when you wanted to kill your brother and sell your brother into slavery. But now they're saying that they're honest men. And so the brothers go back and tell their dad everything that happened and said that we cannot go back unless we have Benjamin. And so the father said, no. Are you going to take my old gray head to the grave? I've already lost one son, and they're the only one that's left from their mother, the mother that Jacob loved. He wasn't willing to let Benjamin go. And so time went on by. They ate the food, and it got to the point where they didn't have any food left. They were and he said, the boys went to their father like, you want us to starve? We got to take Benjamin back with us. And Jacob was like, no, we're not taking my only son that I have left from my wife. And I already lost his brother, Joseph. I'm not sending Benjamin. I can't do that. I will just die. It'll send my old gray head to the grave. And so Reuben say, just let me take him back. You can take my two boys as slaves. Take my two boys as slaves. If I don't bring Benjamin back, you can take my boys and kill them or take them as slaves. And so Jacob said no. And so Judah was like, got up and, kind of got harsh and like, you want all of us to die and your other children to die for starvation and this famine because you won't let Benjamin go. The man already told us that if we don't bring our brother Benjamin back, we will not be able to get anything or come back to him. And Simeon would have to stay as a slave. And so after all of the talking and prodding and pushing, Jacob finally just let him go. And like, if I die, I die. My old gray head died to the grave. Just go. So they took Benjamin back with them. So once they got back to where Joseph was, he saw Benjamin, his brother. He and his brother Benjamin were the only children from his mother, and she died at birth with Benjamin. And so he saw Benjamin. He was so choked up and wanted to cry. He actually went into another room and cried, and he came back. And so he actually fed them. He sat at his own table. The king said when he was sitting at his own table as a governor, the Egyptians sit at their own table because they thought it was like repulsive to sit with the Hebrew. Even though he was over them, they thought it was repulsive to sit at the same table with a Hebrew. And then his brothers sat at their own table. But what he did when they had the food brought to him, he gave Benjamin way more on his plate than he gave everybody else. And they noticed that. And so now it's time to get their food, their grain and everything that they purchased to go back. And so Joseph told his people to put one of his good, expensive items in the bag of his younger brother Benjamin. And so the brothers go packing off, going back. And so Joseph had his people to go and stop them and say somebody stole something. They was like, we wouldn't dare pay our master back for anything wrong. We wouldn't dare do nothing like that. We didn't steal anything. And so he said, whoever I find the chalice in, that's the one that's going to have to stay and be slave to me. And whose bag do they find it in? They find it in the bag of Benjamin, his brother Benjamin, the one. And everybody was so upset. They started just renting their clothes. They were so angry, sad, because they knew Judah and Reuben. They was like, take me. Don't let we did not take anything. Don't let our brother go down to be a slave. We cannot go back home to our poor old father in his older age. We cannot go back home without our brother Benjamin. He already lost his brother. It'll just kill my father. It'll kill our father. And so Joseph was so moved and so hurtful And that was he wanted to know, because he was asking, is my dad really alive? Is he still alive? And so earlier he was asking them that, but he didn't say his dad, but is your dad alive or whatever? And so when he said he couldn't go back, it'll just kill his father, he already grieved so hard for the other one, which is Joseph, that he was taken away. We couldn't dare go back without him. Just take us. Reuben said, take me. Judah said, take me. I'll just stay here with you as a slave. But don't take my brother Benjamin from my father. It'll kill him. It'll take his old gray head to the grave. And so Joseph was so moved that Joseph went away, and he cried so hard. He cried so loud and so fierce that the Egyptians heard him. Everybody heard him. And so Joseph came back and told his brothers. He actually got away from him, took away from his disguise, and he told him, I am Joseph. I am your brother. I am the one that you sold into slavery. But do not fear. It's okay. Is my father really alive? And they said, your father is alive. They couldn't even speak, first of all. Is my father really alive? So he said, your father is alive. And so Joseph kissed Benjamin on the neck. Joseph was so moved with emotions to see his family and be able to disclose himself and to know that his father was actually alive, that he kissed his brother Benjamin on the neck, and he told his brothers, don't fear. It was God. Don't fear, I won't harm you. You meant it for bad, but God meant it for good. God sent me ahead as a remnant to save the lives of so many people, including my family, because he knew that there were going to be a severe famine in the land at this time. And the brothers were so Joseph just wept bitterly, just wept. And the Egyptians heard all of this, heard everything that was said. They went back and told Pharaoh. And Pharaoh told Joseph to send back the wagons, go get your dad, your family, bring them all back, and we'll let them live in the land of Goshen, a land that's plenty, a land, and they'll be near you, and we'll take care of them. And so they went back and told Jacob all the news, and Jacob cried. His brother, his son that he thought was gone for all these years, 13 years, Joseph is alive. So his brothers were still scared because they knew that they had mistreated their brother Joseph. But Joseph said, I am a godly man. Go and get our father and everything that he owns. He doesn't just bring him and family. The land of Egypt has plenty in it. So Joseph said, God sent me. God did this. You meant it for bad, but God meant it for good. God sent me, let me go through all of that so I can be a remnant for many, because it was so many that would have died in this severe famine had Joseph not been there. His family wouldn't have had the favor that they had in Egypt to go buy and everything and get all the food they need in this severe famine. He said, go get our dad. It's been a famine for 2 years, and we have 5 more years to go. And we have plenty, and I will take care of you. You meant it for bad, but God meant it for good, beloved. And so, beloved, can you imagine? Back in 37, his brothers ridiculed him. They hated him. They were jealous of him because he was favored by God, and he was favored by his dad. Dad made him that coat of many colors. And so they had him thrown in a pit. When he told them about all his dream, they didn't like what he said. He said, you're going to bow down to me. We're going to bow down to you? You're going to run us? Yes, because that's what he's doing now. All these years, 13 years later, he is bowing down to him. They're bowing down to him. And if it wasn't for Joseph, God using Joseph, they would have starved to death. So they meant it for bad, but God meant it for good, beloved. So in 39, that's when they come, and when in 37 they sold him told them to the Israelites, and they went into slavery. And so now he's in Potiphar's house. Potiphar's wife accused him of trying to have sex with her. He's thrown into the prison. He interprets the chief baker and the cupbearer's dreams. That's when now Pharaoh has a dream, and the cupbearer remembers him. And so now he interprets Pharaoh's dream, and now Pharaoh put him in charge as a wise, discerning man of God, put him in charge of everything. He rode in the second chariot. Pharaoh rode in the first chariot. So he was in charge of governor over everything in Egypt. Nobody could do anything unless Joseph told them they can do it. And so now Joseph has wives. He has two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. God has been giving him fruitfulness in his affliction, and God has helped him to not to remember the toil of his father's house. That's what he named his children, Manasseh and Ephraim, after that tribulation and the trials and affliction that he went through. And so now Joseph is doing good. He's the head man in charge. He's running everything in Egypt. And now, in actually chapter 42, Joseph realizes that they're in a severe famine and they need food. So he sends his sons over to Egypt to get food. But when they get there, Joseph recognizes them, and he plays with them for a while and said, "You're spies." He recognized them. "You're spies. You come to find my weak point." And they're like, "No, no, no, no. We would never. We're honest men. We're all sons of one father in Canaan, and he is actually one of the. He has one son, Benjamin, one son at home, and he has one that is no longer with us, which was Joseph. He was with them, and so, beloved, he played with him for a good while. He even kept Simeon there and as a slave to send him to go home and get Benjamin because he wanted to see his brother. He played with him, and they were like, they're talking amongst themselves like, what is God doing to us? God is actually disciplining us. God is dealing with us because of what we did to our brother. So Joseph is sitting on the outside, and he's listening to them. He acting like he doesn't understand. He has an interpreter, but he's a Hebrew just like them. He's their brother, and he understands everything that they're saying, beloved. And he is so moved that he goes and and cry. But when I tell you, he said he put money in their bags. He did all kind of stuff to trick them. They went home. They were scared. They did all different things. And he finally got the son. They finally got the father to actually send him back with Benjamin. And so they were so scared. They were so scared of what was going on that they were so scared of what was going on that they didn't even understand. They were just so scared to go back, but they realized they feel like God was dealing with them. And so they were so scared, and they didn't want to hurt their father again. They already knew the pain that they had done to their father, Jacob. They didn't want to do that again. It seemed like they probably had changed. But later on, when they come back with Benjamin, after convincing their father that he knew that they were going to die if he didn't. And so guess what? Joseph discloses himself. He takes away his disguise and reveals himself to his brothers. Don't be fearful. I'm your brother. I'm doing big. I'm doing good over in Egypt. You meant it for bad, but God meant it for good. It was God who sent me. He used what you did to get me here, so many lives could be changed and saved because of what you did. God was behind it all, beloved. You meant it for bad, but God meant it for good. He sent me ahead to be a remnant to save so many lives, because without Joseph's wisdom and knowledge and being able to store up for 7 years when they had 7 good years of plenty. So when they had the 7 years of famine, they would be able to take care of themselves. And so Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of everything because he was wise and discerning, beloved. And so, beloved, I say today, what somebody meant for bad, God meant for good. God will take a bad thing that happened to us, and we think it's so bad and we can't handle it. We blaming other people. We crying over all this other stuff. What somebody meant for bad, God meant for good. They couldn't stay, beloved. They had to go. They had to treat you the way they treated you. he or she, anybody, job, they had to let you go. Whatever happened to you, beloved, God forbid, I'm not minimizing anybody's pain, but it had to happen. They meant it for bad, but God meant it for good, beloved. And so I'm telling you, just like Joseph went through all of that, but he never lost hope in God. He kept his hope and his faith in God. He kept being honorable. What somebody did to you, no matter how long it was ago, they meant it for bad, but God meant it for good. And when we're going through something, beloved, being obedient and staying close to God could be a matter of life and death for somebody. Had Joseph not gone and talked and went through all of this, if he would have got off track and moved in a different way, all those people would have been killed or died of starvation and a famine all those years later. So, beloved, stick with God. Allow God to show you. Allow God to heal you. Allow God to deliver you. It doesn't matter what they did to you, beloved. They meant it for bad, but God meant it for good. You had to be left. You had to be ridiculed. You had to lose your job. You had to do whatever had to happen to you. You had to go through that loss. Whatever you had to go through, and I had to go through, beloved. They meant it for bad, but God meant it for good. He sent Joseph ahead of them to provide for them. Can you imagine how scared and how fearful that his brothers were? And how humble they had to be. The one that you mistreated. Oh, what's going to see what become of this dreamer? Now they see what has become of that dreamer. Everything that Joseph said came to pass. And they did bow down to him. The father and everybody had to bow down to Joseph. Just like he dreamed, beloved. So it doesn't matter what somebody think about what God has given you to dream about. Or your purpose, your blessing. Keep trusting in God. Keep looking at God, the author and the finisher of our faith, beloved. Because even though we were sad, even though it was hurtful, even though it was discouraging, even though it hurt, they meant it for bad. But beloved, God meant it for good. And he has a bigger purpose and a bigger plan. Someone always told me, if God allowed it, trust that he has a plan for it. He doesn't waste opportunities, beloved. So I pray today that you keep your eyes on God and remember that he loves us. He's not going to allow us to go through anything that he's not be able to use for his glory. It's all for his kingdom, and it's ultimately for his glory, beloved. They meant it for bad, but God meant it for good. Beloved, if you don't know Jesus Christ and the pardon of your sins, today is a great day to do so. All you have to do is be willing to admit that you are a sinner. Be willing to turn from your sins, forsake your sins. Confess with your mouth that Jesus is Lord. Believe in your heart that Jesus died on the cross for your sins. And that on the third day, with all power in his hand, God raised him from the grave, beloved. And by faith you are saved. Lest any man should boast or brag. It's the gift of God through eternal life in Christ Jesus, beloved. Get in a Bible-based church where a preaching teacher can teach you and show you what the Word of God says. So you and I can learn what it says about what we're responsible for as individuals, and what God is going to hold us accountable for. So we'll be able to give a reason of hope that lies within us, beloved. I pray that you will have a good day, be blessed, and remember, they meant it for bad, but God meant it for good, beloved. Keep your head up. Keep looking at God. Keep an eye on the prize, because God's getting ready to do something big, and it's going to be big just for you, just for me. Go and have a great day. Bye.